Not every repair job is going to end perfectly. Every once in a while, you're going to come across a job where no matter what you do, how you plan, it's always going to end up wrong. I'm Zach with Little Bell Woodworking Studio. When you come across these situations, it's easier just to admit defeat than it is to continue down a path where you're going to cause more damage to an antique piece. Case in point, I recently had an Eames chair that had the back fall off from the bottom. And here, as you can see in the video, I cleaned up all the mounting spots for the shock mounts. Now, the shock mounts are rubber mounts that sit between the metal arm bracket and the lower plywood case and the upper back. And in this case, everything looked perfect. It cleaned up nicely, and once I reattached and re-glued it, no matter what I did, it just would not hold in place. After 24, 48, 72 hours, the glue never fully attached to the plywood. And no matter what I did to the rubber shock mounts, it just would not work. So in this case, what should I do differently? Should I try a different adhesive? Should I try new shock mounts? And in this case, I ordered new shock mounts because it was clear the current ones were damaged and would no longer work. So the problem I ran into is that this chair had been damaged before. And how did I find out? The shock mounts and the armrest were glued together. No matter what I did, there was no way I could remove the shock mounts from the metal brackets without damaging the metal brackets. In addition, both leather armrests were glued to the metal brackets. The adhesive on one had loosened up to the point where one of them came off with a little work, but the other one just would not budge. And after contacting several repair places that do Eames lounge chairs, they recommended different things I could try, one of which was freezing the parts 24, 48, 72 hours or even longer to cause that metal to contract and see if it would mechanically break that adhesion between the metal and the shock mount. In this case, that didn't work. I tried localized heat to try to warm things up. Did not work. Everything that I tried to do would not work on removing either that last leather armrest or removing the shock mounts from the metal brackets. And the only other option I had left would be to mechanically remove the shock mount from the metal brackets, which would end up damaging the metal brackets. And in this case, that defeats the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do. And with Eames chairs, the value is having original parts. I could have bought all new original parts to replace the ones that are glued together and could no longer be repaired. The issue is, what is the value of the chair at this point? And what will be the value of the chair when those repairs are made? And what is the cost of those repairs? Now, if those shock mounts were able to be replaced, it would have been an affordable repair, and it would have worked out for my client. However, with more work needing to be done, more parts needing to be replaced, then the cost versus the value of the repair is just not worth it anymore. There may be sentimental reasons why a homeowner would prefer to pursue a repair at this point, where the cost and the value are not in alignment anymore. Case in point, family heirlooms. Some families will view a family heirloom as irreplaceable, which means they want it repaired so it looks exactly the same as, or as close as the original state the piece was in before it was damaged. And hardly do I come across a family where they will just get rid of a piece and throw it away and then buy something new. It has sentimental value, which is hard to put a price on. But sometimes the cost of having a professional do the repair is too much even for that. In cases that I deal with, when that happens, I actually sit down and walk a client through the process of how they can do the repair on their own before they come to me. That way they can save money as much as possible before they have to have a professional finish it for them. In this case, this Eames chair came to my client through her ex-husband. He was a collector and also did repairs. Does it have sentimental value? Not so much. Does it have historical value? Yes, it does. Eames chairs have a tendency to be very valuable, but they're very valuable when they're in their original condition and in perfect shape. However, even being in disrepair, they can still be valuable in most people's eyes. Case in point, this chair would still be worth roughly $900 in the condition that it's in right now. It could be repaired using original parts to bring the value to where it would be if it hadn't been damaged. The issue is the cost of these replacement parts plus the cost of labor. The issue is the cost of these replacement parts. The cost of the labor are going to put the repair cost above the value of the piece. Unfortunately, I'll have to call and break the news to my client that I will not be able to do any repairs on this piece for her. Even though I had new shock mounts ready to install, I was not able to remove the old ones from the metal arms, let alone one of the leather armrests that goes on that bracket. And because they were glued together, and there was no way to remove these parts without damaging the metal bracket, if I damaged it, that meant I would have to order new metal brackets, probably both leather armrests because they come in pairs. The cost of those metal brackets, the cost of the shock mounts, the cost of the leather armrest, and the cost of labor that has already gone into it and will have to go into it to replace all of these parts would come out to $2,400. So that cost would be more than the value of the piece afterwards. So I'm leaving it up to the client to see if she would like to go that extra step, no matter the cost to repair it, or if she will accept the diagnosis that I provided to her that I can't repair it because the cost versus the value is not there. However, she can choose to have me walk her through how to do it herself, but in this case, I don't think she will. It's going to be a tough conversation, and as a woodworker and a person that does furniture repair, you have to have these conversations with yourself to keep yourself honest that not everything you touch can be repaired or should be repaired. Even though, yes, if you had the time, the client had the money, you could do it. It's not worth it. This is also a tough conversation that you need to have with your client, mostly because that cost and the value proposition isn't there. And if you were to do those repairs ethically, it is not a smart move, unless the client has a family heirloom and they sign off on it. In that case, you want to have written documentation ahead of time from the family signing off on those repairs that you recommend and providing a down payment. It's one that I will have to walk away for now because in my heart, I can't do the repair at the cost that makes sense. And for the client, I can't waste their money in good conscience, and I can't waste their time anymore. And you need to be honest with yourself and with your clients, because not everything is going to be a win-win proposition with antique furniture. It's just not going to go that way every time. Not everything is an easy repair. Even those hard ones that can be done aren't worth it. You need to know when to walk away and when to say no. I'm Zach with Little Bell Woodworking Studio. Till next time, have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you learned something. And stick around, click on the next video that pops up here or here.